A few days ago, we ran an interview with Professor Emily Gilbert about how dangerous it is for Canadians to cross the border into the United States. Is it dangerous for everyone? Of course not. Are more Canadians being harassed by U.S. border guards or given 5-year bans from entering the country? The answer appears to be yes. Today, I'm interviewing Ken Scott, a Surrey based U.S. immigration law intelligence analyst who helps Canadian travelers, both personal and business, navigate the complexities of traveling to the United States. Well, welcome to the interview, Ken.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. And whatever I can do to help, the audience, I'm all for it.
Well, as I was telling you off the air, I used to work in the U.S.
Mhm.
For 4 or 5 years, traveled across the border almost monthly, had a neighbor who was a U.S. Customs guard, told me a lot of things, do this, don't do that, say this, don't. So I had a lot in the information you sent me. I saw a lot of the common sense stuff that he told me, and I thought our audience really needs to hear this. So I'm glad you reached out to me. I want to ask a couple of general questions to begin with. So, has travel into the United States changed since Trump became president?
I would say it has changed. Maybe not in the way that it's portrayed in other media stories. It's changed in the sense that under the Trump administration, CBP has been enforcing laws that have been on the books for decades, but they've definitely been enforced much more now against foreign nationals, to include Canadians. So I mean, one hand, it's an unfortunate thing because it just delayed travelers. But on the other hand, I mean, we're dealing with U.S. national security. So, I mean, travelers just, they're going to have to get used to the fact that now these laws are being enforced. It's some ways unfortunate, but it's just a fact of life.
One of the things I learned when I was going through the border that often is that whatever the border guard that I was dealing with said pretty much went. It was their interpretation of the laws,
Yep.
and there's no arguing, there's no complaining, there's no. I remember one time I asked for a supervisor, because I disagreed with the officer, and he just came and said, "Why would I disagree with my colleague here? Why would I do that? No, it's gonna stand." But what are some of the stories you've heard about Canadians who do are having troubles in the last 3 or 4 months?
I guess the bigger thing is more so I'm hearing Canadians getting stopped more for secondary, screening, asking there being more questions are being posed to them. What people need to understand is that I believe it was January 25th or so, give or take. Trump signed an executive order regarding extreme vetting. And what that means is, amongst other things, is foreign nationals, to include Canadians, they are being pulled aside more to be asked different questions to comply with that extreme vetting. I just don't think the Canadians really should be worried about that for the most part, because if they're asking questions, they're just checking closer that, they want to make sure that you are who you are going where, let's say, Bellis Fair Mall shopping in Bellingham, since I'm over here in Surrey, BC. They want to make sure that, you're who you are, what you say is, correct. If you're going shopping, that's fine. Or if you're going to visit your mother in Bellingham, that's fine. There's no problem with that. They just want you guys, the audience, to just be truthful and just be straight up and make it easier for the officer and for yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of one of your recommendations is be honest and direct. Like,
Yes.
don't beat around the bush. Don't be cute. Don't try to make jokes. Answer the question as simply and directly as you can.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Because the thing is, for that, these border cases that we clear over here in Surrey, what we've seen in some cases, people have crossed over with an ulterior motive. I mean, that's not a good thing. Like, for example, if you're a female and you got a boyfriend in Bellingham, but you say that you're only going down to Bellis Fair Mall to go shopping, but you're actually going to see him. So the officer looks in your phone and sees the fact that you've got this boyfriend there, you're going down shopping, but then you also are going to happen to overstay and get married while there. He's going to say, wait a minute, how is it you're only going shopping when here in your phone it states you're going to get married here within the next 3 weeks? The wedding's already planned, everything's already laid out. So they're going down to the guise of shopping where the real intent is to meet up with him and get married, and that's not right.
But that raises another question. Your story suggests that the border guard's going to ask for their phone. They have the right to go through your phone.
Yes.
That gives me the heebie-jeebies. I'll be honest with you. I don't want anybody going through my phone, least of all the border guard. And I've heard from a lot of our audience who are saying that crosses a line. Is that something that's been in place for a while and they're just enforcing, or is the ability to search a phone, is that new?
That actually that came out around 2007 on our channel. I showed some of the memos and direction manuals to that effect. That, in a sense, is nothing new, but the extreme vetting that Trump has ordered, combined with the phone searches and body searches, whatever, and laptop searches, all that combined helps facilitate the implementation of his program for extreme vetting. So it's not new in that sense, but it can happen, and I can understand, you don't want them going through your phone, and it's nothing, you have nothing to hide, absolutely. But people need to understand that CBP does not have a magic wand, whereas they can wave it and say, okay, I see 8 people here in the lobby. Which person here has a nefarious thing they're going to do? They don't know. So they have to search each of the individuals. Now, let's say 6 of the individuals search, phones have nothing relevant. But 2 of the phones search, one has information regarding the 7th person is involved with narcotics trafficking, and the 8th one is someone involved with washing money. That's in the phones. So yeah, those 2 people need to be concerned. But the first 6 people, there's nothing in there. I mean, yeah, I get people don't want their phones searched, but if you've got nothing in there that's going to incriminate you, and you're responsible for what's in your phone, but nothing in there that's going to incriminate you, they really have no concern. They shouldn't really be worried.
Well, let me give you an example. As a journalist, I've said, in fact, I just had an interview with an American teaching at the University of Toronto. He's a trade economist who said all sorts of things about Trump that Trump would not be pleased about if he heard. And that would be on my phone. I mean, you could easily find that sort of thing over and over and over and over again, and comments that I've made on social media. And I talked to people who have said, I went down, they said, do I like Donald Trump? I said no, and they refused me entry. That seems to be extreme. But you're not hearing those stories?
No, quite often, I mean, your situation might be different, but quite often there's usually more to the story than what's being told to the public. Yes, they can search the phone, and yes, if they see anti-Trump statements in there, it depends how it's worded. If it's something like really, really, like say violent related, that I can't stand the man. If I ever see the man, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind, something like that. Yeah, now you're getting into the national security aspect of it. But for something in there, say, I think he's this, he's wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And the officer sees that and says to you, let's say, or the officer was saying to me, well, Mr. Scott, I see here you said Mr. Trump, you don't approve of what he's doing in terms of like the border searches and how he's running the economy, what he's doing to Canada. Myself, I'd say, sir, I understand your concern. And yes, there some information in my phone, but I don't discuss politics. In all honesty, I don't really have an opinion either way. This is what I thought previously, but now that I have had some time to think about it over the past few days or few weeks, whatever, I'm thinking in my mind that the man has a job he has to do, and I understand it, and that's all I really have to say. I have no other opinion. He's got a job to do. He's going to get it done. That
But
kind of a safe
Ken,
way.
doesn't that violate the First Amendment of the United States? And I know that the Canadians are not don't come under the First Amendment. I get that. That just seems offensive that somebody, a border guard going through my phone, I have to change or pretend that I have different opinions than I do that have really no implications for the personal safety of Donald Trump or anything I might do. And it's just my political opinions. I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I see your point. And what I've said to people, and people have said that to me here in this office, and I said, look, you are a foreign national entering the USA. You're, Canadian citizen. Not you, I'm just saying the other people. So, yes, this officer is going to say some things that you may not necessarily agree with. He may even voice his opinion. The bottom line is you're crossing over. You have a purpose for entering the U.S. Let's say you're taking the family down to Disneyland. You've got your two small children with you and wife, mother-in-law, or whatever. Are you going to jeopardize your border trip based upon the fact that you've got the family members here and you have one separate opinion about the administration? So when you factor in that, say, you know what, my family is much more important than this officer. If this officer is very pro-Trump, I'm going to be extremely submissive because when the day is over, once we pass this line and I have my family here in USA and we're enjoying ourselves, that's what's most important because me, let's say me being father, and I've got my wife and kids here, that's more important than appeasing this officer. So I'm saying, yes, sir, you're correct. Thank you very much. So he's happy. And he says, have a nice day. Then once you get into the US, you are actually benefiting in the end. So it depends on how a person perceives it. So if a person wants happiness, that's the game we got to play for the moment.
Okay, well, fair enough. We don't have to beat this. This horse is dead. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's one that I learned kind of. I didn't say I learned it the hard way, but I watched other people make this mistake. And your advice is stay calm and be polite, maintain a courteous
Yeah,
tone,
yeah.
don't rush. I saw other people kind of give a little attitude to the officer. They do not like that. That's a bad decision.
Yes, it is. Being a former law enforcement officer myself, a former federal officer who was previously posted in Washington State, a lot of people don't understand is that when you deal with law enforcement officers down there, be it federal, local, municipal, they have a different way of thinking and looking at things. They won't come out and say this, but quite often in their minds, you're guilty. They won't tell you that, but in their minds, you're guilty. And they do a lot of profiling. They won't come out and tell you that, but they want to profile you. So if you give them a reason to dig further, they will. Case in point, like over here in Surrey, two guys are going down, let's say to Seattle in a truck, a nice 2025 Dodge Ram truck. No, I'll say Lamborghini, a brand new Lamborghini. Two guys, tattoos up and down both arms, going down to Seattle, shaved heads, young, muscular, automatically profiled as possible drug traffickers. So they're going to be pulled inside and they're going to look. And then lo and behold, these two gentlemen, they've never been charged with a crime, nothing, and they're longshoremen. So it's totally profiled, and the officer's going to ask questions maybe related to like trafficking or whatever. And then these individuals are going to say, well, no, I'm a longshoreman. It's what I do. I've never done any of this stuff. He's like, okay, okay, I'm satisfied. Okay, you're good to go. Fast forward, different scenario. These same two gentlemen, well, they're both longshoremen, but one of them had been charged with trafficking, but it was dismissed. He's going to pick up on that, the officer. So that one, he's going to pull aside, put into the background, and press and put pressure on him to admit to things. And the minute he admits to something wrong, he is now inadmissible and sent back to Canada. And his buddy might get flagged just for being with him. So a lot of it is how you present yourself to an officer, like the proper attitude, calm, respectful, polite. To, sir, I know you're doing a job. To anything I can do to help you, I'm, here for you. It goes, a lot better.
Yeah, yes, I can attest from experience that is the truth. The other thing is have your documents in order. You
Yes.
would think that that would be a common sense kind of thing, and it often is not the case, or sometimes it's not the case.
Yeah, you got to have your documentation in order. Like, for example, if you are going shopping, you don't have to write out a list of each store you're going to attend. But logically, if you know you're going to Target, what is it? Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't shop in the US, I don't know. Vanity Fair store. You can show the officers, well, you know what? I like to go shopping at Bellis Fair Mall, and I'm thinking about going to these three stores because my mother-in-law wants a bath set. So okay, okay, that's fine, no problem. What are you doing afterwards? Well, then we'd like to go for dinner, maybe at ABC restaurant on God Meridian in Bellingham. They say, okay, okay, that's fine, that's fine. What do you do for work? Well, I work as a longshoreman downtown, downtown Vancouver. I said, okay, okay. Been arrested? No, sir. Have smoked any narcotics? No, sir, never. Okay. Have a nice day. Easy.
Yes. But one of the things that my neighbor in Calgary told me, he said, we will ask you questions that are designed to put pressure on you to elicit
Yes.
a certain response. Could you get into that a little bit if you don't mind?
I'll give you an example. We had a female who went down to USA to Seattle with the intent of shopping, but it was to get married. The officer looked at her and profiled her because of the fact that she's 24 years old, attractive, and she said, "Oh, I'm going shopping, going solo," and automatically it's a red flag. And he says to her, "Where do you work?" She says, "Well, I'm not working right now. I live with my parents." Another red flag. She goes to secondary. He starts digging. Then he says, "Give me your phone." She searches the phone, and in the phone, something to the effect that, "Baby, I'm going to be with you. We're going to vacation in Maui, let's just say, etc. And we're going to have a great life there. I'm going to help you run your business, your car dealership." He says, "Okay, ma'am." He takes her into a back room. You're not being honest with me." She said, "What do you mean?" "I already know about the car dealership. I already know the fact that you were working there uh, at times. I know the fact that you're going to get married to Stephen." He said, "You better be honest with me, because if you're not honest with me, I'm going to arrest you. I'm going to cite you for misrepresentation. So you better be honest right now." She said, "Yes, it was his idea. He told me not to tell the officer my real reason for going. So you admit that your intent was to go see Stephen, get married, and start a life in the USA. Yes. Where's your visa?" "I don't have one." "Why?" "Well, he said it's faster if I do it this way." "Okay, you go have a seat." He got her for misrepresentation, and that's a permanent ban. So when he does that green card application, he has to factor that into it. And that's going to be a lot harder for her to get the sponsorship now.
Speaking of bans, I've read of a number of stories where people went down and were refused entry and got 5-year bans. And
Yes.
can you tell us about that?
That's called expedited removal. And that came out around 1996 when Bill Clinton was president. And basically, in simple terms, expedited removal, CBP is the judge, the jury, and the executioner. So it's also a deportation. Now, the thing is, with the expedited removals, you have two types. You've got the 6C, which is misrepresentation, and that might say 5 years. You also got the 7A 5-year ban. The 7A, after 5 years are up, that ban is fine, it's done. What people don't realize is that 6C misrepresentation is permanent. Even though it says 5 years, people say, "Well, Ken, it says 5 years." It says no. That means that if you want a waiver within this 5-year window, you need a waiver for the misrepresentation, you need a waiver for the deportation, which you receive. So you need two. If you wait the 5 years, you need a waiver for the the misrepresentation. But the waivers themselves are only good for 1 to 5 years generally. So if that's the case, and then you get the waiver for, let's say, 2 years, after 3 years, you got to redo that thing again. And you got to redo that thing until the day you become deceased.
Well, you
And
say you stop traveling to the United
well,
States.
then you won't be traveling then because you know what they.
Well, like, here's another one that really caught my attention. I'm going to tell you a story. I was in the line to get into security at LAX one time. We're coming back to Canada.
Yep.
And the guy next to me, uh, out of the blue, I was rooting around in a bag looking for something. And he goes, "Have you got a gun in there?" My eyes got big, and I looked around to make sure that nobody had heard because this was 2003, 2004, something like
Okay. Yep.
that, close enough to 9/11 that everybody was still a little jumpy.
Yep.
And I wasn't the only one giving him the evil eye. Trust me, because I think we all knew that that is verboten. You just do not do that. But what if you do, or somebody you're traveling with does as a joke? What are the consequences?
Well, that's a really, really, really bad joke. It could end in a really deadly way.
Yes.
It really could. I mean, if let's say if you're traveling to the USA and your buddy pulls that joke and starts reaching in there saying he's got a gun, there's a very good possibility that they're going to open fire on him, and you might get hit in the crossfire. Because the thing is, in law enforcement, things happen within a split second. There's a time we did a traffic stop in Thurston County, and I was still a trainee then at the time. So we got up, we approached the vehicle, and when we got halfway to the vehicle, the gentleman jumped out with a shotgun and racked around in it. You know how you shotgun, you rack
Yeah,
around,
yeah,
and
sure.
yeah. So of course we drew our sidearms, and we only had 2 seconds to 3 seconds to deal with that situation, and 3 seconds is long. Sometimes you don't have any seconds. So that kind of situation, he really, when it's over, he really needs a good chewing out because that could end up in a in a deadly, way. It's nothing to joke. Now, we've had
Yeah.
clients who went down to the border to file waivers, and this is true stories. And in the computer, because who they were in the past over here in Surrey, East Vancouver, the computer said armed and dangerous. So they pulled up to the booth, and they both told me two separate occasions. They both told me the officers came running outside with that gun, saying, "Get on the ground, let me see your hands." Now, had they reached in, let's say, for ID or whatever, they could have got shot easily because the computer said armed and dangerous. So for the audience, when you're dealing with U.S. law enforcement officers, especially because the U.S. is saturated with firearms, we seize a lot of them. Be honest, be direct. Make sure no quick movements. Explain what you're doing. So, like, sir, may I please reach for my ID? May I please reach for it? Yes, you may. And you slowly reach for it. Show your coat that it's just my wallet's here or my wallet's, etc. Don't do any quick sudden movements because you could really risk getting shot.
In the 5 years that I spent working in the U.S., I got pulled over a few times for speeding. I'm not going to lie. A bit of a lead foot back in the day. And I'll never forget this time in Midland, Texas. The officer would parked behind me, got out, stood at the back of my car on the driver's side, where he could see me, hand on his
Yep.
hip on his gun,
Yep. Yep.
and he yelled at me, like screamed at me, like it was almost intimidating, to get out of the car.
Yep.
And just the thought of that happening in Canada, I couldn't. That's not the RC way any RCMP or police, local police force would handle it. It was scary as hell, and that wasn't the only time. I have other stories, all dealing with excessive speed. I'm afraid, but nevertheless, I absolutely agree with you. It scared the bejeebers out of me, and changed my driving habits. I must admit, at some point.
Yeah, now up here in Canada, especially here in Surrey, British Columbia, I don't know if you know much about Surrey. This place has a bad reputation. So here they are, well, now Surrey police. The Surrey police, they are very cautious when they pull people over because this city is saturated with illegal firearms. The city really is. So these officers have to be careful anyway when they pull you over here. Maybe not to the same degree as USA, but the thing is, when an officer does a traffic stop or you pull up to a U.S. Customs border, he has no idea whom he's dealing with. Now, pulling up to the booth, they can see the plate. The plate doesn't necessarily mean who's behind the wheel. And the person behind the wheel, you don't know the state of mind. You don't know what they have in their car. You do a traffic stop here in Surrey. You don't know what's in that car. You don't know their state of mind. You might know the name. You might recognize them. You just don't know. So I want to tell the audience, please don't hold this against law enforcement officers because they deal with a lot of dangerous scenarios. And I used to deal with dangerous scenarios. So I understand where they're coming from. What I do is try to help them as much as possible. Say, it's okay. This is what I'm doing. This is what's going on. And in the end, they really appreciate it. So it kind of ties into what you said before about being honest and direct when you deal with these border officers. Be honest, be direct. And the thing is, the same woman who wants to marry the guy in Seattle I told you about, there's a way she could do that legally. And in the sense of, she said, look, I would like to go down here. These are my Canadian ties. It's a certain procedure you have to do, but these are my Canadian ties. I would like to enter the USA to see my fiance. We would like to get married on this date. I am coming back to Canada on this date. Here's proof I'm coming back. And quite often that's fine because you're being straight up, you're being honest, you're showing the fact that this is the marriage date. I am not staying in the USA. We're coming right back because of the family. His family is very large. This is why we're doing it. So, okay, okay, okay. So it makes sense if you do it that way and you're honest, then there's no like shenanigans. But if you do it like on the slide, try to be sneaky and they catch you, you're buried. You're done.
Yeah, yeah, and they often will catch you. And I want to get that's
Yeah,
the next thing I want to argue or raise from your notes was don't argue U.S. laws or CBP policies with the officers. And I'll give an example. One time I was going down to the U.S. I wanted to shoot some video, and my wife was with me because she's
yeah,
our video shooter and editor. And he said, "Well, no, because you could hire somebody down here to do that."
yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, technically I could, but it won't be done this way with our equipment. And I no, doesn't matter. I don't care about that. You're taking work away from a U.S. citizen. And so even though I thought I had an argument, he made it really clear, really quickly, end of argument. The argument was over. Just take your lumps and go away and figure something else out. And that was a bit of a lesson for me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, now it is in the DHS regulations. I mean, that kind of situation, not I don't want to say I'm on his side, but he is correct. Technically, as per the regs, he's right. Uh, there's an American citizen you can hire to take those photos. Maybe the American would not be as good as someone from up here, possibly. So it might be a way you can coordinate that with the person there. So you have to have a relevant work visa to work in the USA. Like for example, if you're under like the TN visa, RN, under the old NAFTA treaty, now they call it sorry, CUSMA. So, but for lack of better words, let's just say NAFTA. So if you're an RN, you work under the NAFTA treaty, that's fine. You get the NAFTA, get the visa under the treaty, working as an RN or engineer, then you're good to go. But the person who wants to go to USA to work digging ditches and he doesn't have the right visa, and they find out you're going to dig ditches where you say you're going shopping or visit your buddy, now they got you for misrepresentation and working illegally in the USA, especially if you've done it before. So, well, no, I've dug 3 ditches there already. So now you get the 5 year ban. Well, actually, it'll be lifetime because the misrepresentation and the illegal work. So you're banned for life, where you could have easily avoided that by getting the visa.
Let's wrap up the interview with this one because I can see how this would get a lot of people. You hop in your car, you go down, and you cross the border. You know the Peace Arch border or someplace down near you. We used to live in White Rock, so I actually
Oh
did
yeah,
it
yeah,
in
yeah.
South Surrey, and so I kind of understand the part of the world you're talking about. And stuff's in your back seat, stuff's in your trunk. You don't even think about it. But you get back, you go across the border, and the border guard looks in your back seat and he goes, "What's that? Why are you bringing that in? Are you selling that? Are you, you know?" And well, no, I just had little things like that you never even thought about trips you up at the border.
Yes. Now, again, I don't want to sound like I'm on the side of the U.S. government, but being a former law enforcement officer myself, we've always told people you are responsible for what's in your vehicle. Now, in your vehicle, if there's an illegal shotgun, you own that shotgun. You said, no, it belongs to my next door neighbor. Doesn't matter. Your next door neighbor is not here. You own it. If there's some white powder in your car or in that backpack in the back seat, 2 kilos, you own that, not your neighbor. You're responsible for it. So you're responsible for what's in your car and what's in your phone. So what the audience really needs to do is use a lot of common sense when you're crossing an international line, entering the USA, you're entering a foreign nation. And the reason why you're going through CBP is to see that you're check your inadmissibility, if you're admissible or non-admissible. So when they do that checking, if he feels you're admissible, you're fine. But they find that contraband in your back seat, they're not going to punish the neighbor, they're going to punish you. And the consequences are really, really bad for that. So the bottom line is you have to know before you go. You've got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're saying. You can't have diarrhea of the mouth because you start volunteering things that's not in the database. You're just digging your hole deeper and deeper and deeper. We see it all the time over here, all the time.
Well, Ken, thank you very much for this. You provided my audience with a lot of very good advice, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir.